Yeah, U.S. famously not genocide doer and not genocide haver, not supporting genocide in Yemen presently either. No, of course not. Don't you get it? Genociding foreigners is fine. Genociding domestic people isn't fine unless they're illegal. Then it's still fine. Well, also, genociding domestically or mass enslavement of a group of individuals with a constitutional carve out that legalizes slavery is also totally fine. You know, it's labor camps if it's elsewhere, but it's just a regular prison, just a regular old federal prison if it's in the U.S., baby. We house a quarter of the entire world's prisoner population within our borders. We have the highest prisoner population per capita. Fucking wild that people literally say, like, America's more free than everybody else, brother. Those people deserved it. Spent a year working on a prison farm in Texas back in 1999. Biden is clapping at anti-school mass governors. Biden, I'm directing the Secretary of Education and educator himself to take additional steps to protect our children, Jack. This includes using all of his oversight authorities and legal action, if appropriate, against governors trying to block and intimidate local school officials. Damn. Let's watch the...
This video, taken Sunday, shows Taliban fighters inside Afghanistan's presidential palace. It came as the group took control of Kabul, the Afghan capital, and followed the Taliban.
Let's watch the Wall Street Journal do a quick refresher, but is there TOS in this, I wonder? I'm pre-scanning real quick. Why do Afghans have the dopest clothes and outfits? Dude, I don't know. Because they're fucking fly, dude. That's why. They're pretty fly for a white guy.
This video taken Sunday shows Taliban fighters inside Afghanistan's presidential palace. I'm not going
to be watching the other Adam Curtis documentary because it's like fucking 3 hours long. And not only is it 3 hours long, but it's significantly more bloody, even though I love it, but I won't be able to watch that.
Of Kabul, the Afghan capital, and followed the Taliban's swift seizure of most of the country. It's an outcome U.S. intelligence officials estimated could happen 6 months after the U.S. finished withdrawing its troops from the country. Instead, it took just over a week.
Of the presidential palace.
The truth is, this did unfold more quickly than we had anticipated.
So how did Afghanistan get here? It's a years-long story, but let's look at the 9 days leading up to Kabul's capture, the ones that sealed the Taliban's takeover. On August 6th, after months of expansion throughout Afghanistan's countryside, the Taliban seized the capital of a province along the Iranian and Pakistani borders. It was the first of the country's 34 provincial capitals to fall, an indication of what was to come.
Afghanistan is now at a dangerous turning point. Ahead lies either a genuine peace negotiation or a tragically intertwined set of crises.
The seizure of the city happened quickly, and a resident told the Wall Street Journal at the time it had been taken without much of a fight. In the neighboring Helmand province, Afghan and U.S. airstrikes sought to blunt the Taliban's advances and hold control over key cities. But the Taliban's takeover continued. It claimed 4 more provincial capitals over the next 2 days. On August 8th, it seized the strategic hub of Kunduz, all but eliminating the government's presence in large swaths of the country's north. Videos released by the Taliban showed fighters inside the city's government buildings. The pace of the group's expansion concerned Afghan and Western officials, who said without a forceful international response, the total collapse of the Afghan government could happen this fall, earlier than initially warned. Meanwhile, citizens from Kunduz and other provinces claimed by the Taliban began fleeing, seeking safety in the nation's capital, Kabul. Then, on August 10th, President Biden defended his decision to pull U.S. forces out of the country, saying Afghan forces were trained and equipped to fight.
They've got to fight for themselves, fight for their nation.
But by August 13th, the Afghan government had lost about half of the country's provincial capitals, including its second and third largest cities, Kandahar and Herat. After 20 years of war, much of what the U.S. sought to accomplish in Afghanistan crumbled in just 1 week, and many of the cities were taken without a fight, with Afghan soldiers surrendering to the Taliban, taking advantage of the group's promises of amnesty. Focus then turned to Kabul as the U.S. began deploying thousands of troops to the city for a diplomatic evacuation. Then, Afghan President Ashraf Ghani addressed the nation for the first time since the Taliban's takeover of the provincial capitals began, saying his priority was to remobilize Afghan security forces and defend Kabul. But the next day, on August 15th, Taliban fighters seized Kabul and President Ghani fled abroad, leaving the government in collapse. And by that evening, insurgents took the palace, where they were filmed removing the Afghan flag. With Kabul's capture, 9 days after the first provincial capital fell, the Taliban looked to have control over nearly all of Afghanistan. As the Taliban moved on Kabul, U.S. troops airlifted Western diplomats and civilians from the U.S. embassy to the military side of Kabul's airport. It's a scene that drew comparisons to the rushed exit from the U.S. embassy in Vietnam in 1975. A parallel Secretary of State Antony Blinken rejected on CNN.
This is not Saigon. We went to Afghanistan 20 years ago with one mission.
Yes, and Vietnam only was 19 years. And also, the Southern Vietnamese were able to maintain control of South Vietnam for 2 extra years. Whereas Afghanistan fell to the hands of Taliban, under our watch, of course, under 72 hours. So that last year was a big deal, I think. And people need to remember that. 1 extra year, 72 hours.
And that mission was to deal with the folks who attacked us on 9/11. And we have succeeded in that mission.
By the next day, thousands of Afghans flocked to Kabul's international airport looking to escape. The airport then became the center of the chaos in the capital as people were seen clinging to a U.S. Air Force plane leaving the city.
So, for the record, the difference with, like, Afghanistan is that there was no draft. It's a volunteer army, and we can do more with less. That's the difference. Like, there's less people. It's far away. It doesn't have any sort of, like, serious impact on most people's lives. The media stopped covering all of the worst parts of this ongoing conflict. They were never critical of it to begin with. They were rarely ever critical of it. I mean, think about it. So many of you probably only recently found out about the Afghanistan papers, right? That was incredibly important leaked documents. That's incredibly important coverage. Like, the media didn't even fucking hold Joe Biden to account when Afghanistan policy was at the forefront of the conversation during the election cycle. That's it. That is like, that's precisely the fucking reason. The media is never, ever impartial, of course. They are imperial. Afghanistan Papers is a Washington Post report similar to the Pentagon Papers in Vietnam that talks about how much of a fucking disastrous failure it was that military high command and generals personally fucking knew that all of our efforts in like training the Afghan security forces were just completely bullshit. It was not working. They were killing U.S. troops when they turned their backs on them. And that it was just absolutely fucking a pathetic display. And it was just a waste of money. You know what I mean?
Taliban gunmen roamed the streets outside. At least 8 Afghans were killed on Monday at the airport. Amid the violence, President Biden addressed the U.S., again defending his decision to pull U.S. troops out of Afghanistan.
If anything, the developments of the past week reinforced that ending U.S. military involvement in Afghanistan now was the right decision.
For now, however, Biden has authorized a temporary deployment of troops to the country to secure the airport and help Afghan allies evacuate. The Taliban, meanwhile, saw the first challenge to its rule, as hundreds of Afghans...
Holy shit, how the Taliban expanded Afghanistan during America's longest war. What the fuck? Why is Wall Street Journal spitting right now? I mean, this might have a lot of TOS actually, but... Hold on. Doing a quick scan on this. Bruva RXX, thank you for the 5 Get the subs, my friend. A lot of pre-scans happening today. Pre-watch, GG, yeah. You know it, baby. I have to ensure that. It is rather surprising when I see Wall Street Journal of all outlets like offer like straightforward cover. I mean, I'm sure this won't be straightforward. All right, let's see.
May 1st, 2003. The U.S.
I mean, first of all, they're starting in 2003 when they're talking about like the Taliban's expansion in Afghanistan. You can't start off on 2003. You know what I mean? There's like 30 prior years of shit that's popping off before we get there.
U.S. declares victory in Afghanistan.
The bulk of this country today is permissive. It's
Donald Rumsfeld, I'm sorry for pausing so much, but when he fucking declared victory, the Afghanistan Papers ironically showed, okay, that he was openly stating that he did not know who the enemy targets were, that there were no good visible enemy targets. 2 years in, literally as he was saying this on camera, behind the scenes, he was talking to other commanders like, I don't know who the fuck we're killing in Iraq and Afghanistan.
secure.
The Taliban had been toppled only months after 9/11, and there were some 13,000 NATO troops in the country. Fast forward nearly 20 years. American soldiers have left, the Taliban have come back, and the United Nations says civilian deaths of women and children in Afghanistan have hit record levels. While it's difficult to map exactly how much territory the group actually controls, limited data suggests it's more than half of the country, with the insurgents claiming authority over major border crossings and infrastructure.
Many people, both inside and outside the country, have been surprised by the speed and the scale of the Taliban's advances and by how fragile the Afghan government's authority is looking.
It's time to end America's longest war. It's time for American troops to come home.
Before Biden ordered America's troops to leave, the U.S. had been trying to exit for a while.
And by the end of next year, our war in Afghanistan will be over.
The Taliban victories meant that U.S. soldiers remained in the country much longer than intended.
And now the foreign troops have gone, and the Taliban is steadily taking over large parts of the country.
Here's how the insurgent group has expanded to become stronger than it's been in 20 years, creating the conditions for potential chaos as U.S. troops leave behind a country on the brink of civil war. At the beginning of the war, America's campaign in Afghanistan reached some milestones in just a few months.
When the US-led coalition invaded Afghanistan, the Taliban had controlled the country for 5 years after taking power following an extremely violent civil war. They had imposed strict Islamic rule on Afghanistan. All that changed after 9/11, when President Bush set out to punish the group for harboring al-Qaeda terrorists.
The United States military has begun strikes against al-Qaeda terrorist training camps and military installations of the Taliban regime in Afghanistan.
Bush deployed some 2,500 U.S. troops into the country, causing the Taliban to abandon Kabul and soon thereafter Kandahar, their main stronghold.
The Taliban were a broken force at that time. They gave up barely without a fight and melded back into...
They literally also said that they'd be willing to give Osama bin Laden up to a neutral third-party country and conduct an investigation. And George W. Bush literally was like, no, we're not fucking doing that. We're bombing you. They asked for the bombing campaign to stop. And he said, we will not negotiate with terrorists.
To society and retreated into villages.
I think it was like 3 days after 9/11 that you had CIA unironically coming into the country with pallets, millions of dollars of cash, so that they could fucking start, pumping money into the Northern Alliance and any like tribal Northern Alliance and any sort of like tribes that were against the Taliban and against Al-Qaeda to go in and fucking, turn the other way when Americans inevitably come in.
Some Taliban commanders actually offered to surrender in return for amnesty, but the US declined that offer and wanted to keep fighting them.
Oh shit, never mind. They actually did mention that. What the fuck?
Some Taliban commanders actually offered to surrender in return for amnesty.
That is, what the fuck? This is like actually crazy that they're mentioning this. I'm surprised.
But the US declined that offer and wanted to keep fighting them. They wanted to stamp out every last terrorist from Afghanistan. Instead, the Taliban regrouped in Pakistan, where they received shelter and support with the aim of returning later.
The Taliban began their...
The Taliban request was a flat-out stall tactic. They had no intention of actually turning over bin Laden. Their proposal was never going to be agreed to because it's so laughably bad. Okay, take a fucking week off from bombing Afghan targets then. Like, is that so hard? Like, delay boots on the ground military warfare by a week. We were there for 20 years, dude. I think they could have stalled for 1 week then and then continue the bombing campaign. But no. No, of course not. Which third-party country they were going to give him to? Pakistan? He was already fucking there at the time of his take. Wait, did they say that they were going to give him to Pakistan? The point is they were not down to negotiate at all. That's the point. So what the fuck are you saying? And also, what do you mean, what third-party Pakistan? What, you think we're not in alliance with Pakistan? Are you fucking stupid? Oh, yeah, suspiciously, they found where Osama bin Laden was. Oh, magically. Yeah, because I too watched Zero Dark 30 and got all my information from that one movie that came out like a week after fucking, or whatever, immediately after Osama bin Laden was executed. Come on, dude. Bro, they literally, dude, Osama bin Laden was hiding, jerking off to hentai, and playing like Nintendo 64 Super Smash in a fucking compound that was down the street from Pakistan's West Point Academy, okay? What the fuck do you mean? Like, what? Oh, we just had no idea, bro. That's crazy. Damn, bro, that's wild. We should probably keep occupying Afghanistan. Which we did. We literally did. We murdered, executed Osama bin Laden, okay? Allegedly. I talked to Brace for too long today. Okay, we allegedly murdered Osama bin Laden. Okay. And then we still kept occupying Afghanistan. So what's up?
Their resurgence, and by the middle of the decade, they had launched hundreds of suicide attacks and thousands of bombings, killing hundreds of U.S. soldiers. So to counter their renewed presence, Obama began deploying more forces in the region.
The United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden, the leader of al-Qaeda.
May 1st, 2011, Osama bin Laden, the man held responsible.
ISI owns Pakistan more than the Pakistani government, so unless U.S. was communicating with ISI, your take makes no sense. ISI could have hidden Osama until the end of time. Wow. It's awfully strange that the ISI, which definitely doesn't communicate with the U.S. intelligence at all, even though there are fucking regional allies, was not able to fucking hide Osama bin Laden magically. They were just like unable to simply hide Osama bin Laden anymore. That's so crazy. You know, next to the fucking West Point.
Responsible for the 9/11 attacks was killed. And around that period, the number of U.S. troops in Afghanistan hit a peak of around 100,000. But policymakers and experts began to question the effectiveness of that large military presence.
What became clear was that the
Can read mine, no you can't read my poker face.
There is 0% chance this is actually Osama bin Laden.
Can read mine, no you can't read my poker face. Can read mine, no you can't read my poker face. Poker face, mama, poker face. Mama, poker face, mama, poker face.
There is no shot that this is actually him. There is absolutely no fucking shot, dude. Obama and Biden, Osama bin Laden, coincidence? Oh no, you're right, brother.
Mama, poker face, mama, poker face, like they're in this space. Hold them, let them hit me, baby, play with me. We should play it cause it's a pistol stuff. After he's been hooked, I'll play the one that's on his heart.
I don't believe that. I literally do not believe that this is him. It's funny, but it's not fucking real. Even though it wouldn't be surprising. What's surprising is that this would ever be on fucking video. But it's not surprising that he was like a fan of modern media. I mean, we know that he was. Dude, he's like a rich fucking developer's son. Like, yeah, see, Snopes. Osama bin Laden wasn't exactly known for having an affinity for... Okay, this is wrong. What? He literally was known for having an affinity for popular culture, dude. We saw the recovered documents on his hard drive. It's like for all to see. Come on, Snopes. I mean, I believe that it is false. It does make sense. But, like, if you look at the fucking compound belongings, like, there was, like, insane shit in there, dude. Yeah, he played video games, dude. CIA released files in the 2011 raid that showed Al-Qaeda had downloads of popular games like Half-Life, Super Mario Bros., Yoshi's Island, Final Fantasy VII, Dragon Ball Z, and Counter-Strike. Motherfucker was like... He loved it when the terrorists won. You know what I mean? There was pornography. He had a large pornography collection. There was like literally fucking hentai in there, I think. Disney films, Ants, Cars, Chicken Little, Ice Age, Dawn of the Dinosaurs, documentaries about himself, libraries full of conspiracy theories. He had Noam Chomsky books. Like, so this notion that like he wasn't fucking knowledgeable of or even like cared about or enjoyed like Western media or consumed any of that is fucking completely false.
The US counterinsurgency strategy did not eradicate the Taliban. In fact, some of the more controversial tactics that the US used in Afghanistan, such as night raids and arbitrary detentions and airstrikes that sometimes kill civilians, created discontent in local.
They're holding up images of sorry, they're holding up images of like people, so I don't want to show
communities
that part.
and actually help the Taliban.
This is pretty funny though. They are another reason why the Taliban are so similar to fucking, well, these aren't Taliban. I think these are just like regular Afghanis who are fucking showing ahead of Obama. But the Tea Party did that too. Bin Laden cared a lot about ethics in video games journalists.
And recruit more fighters.
The Taliban's recruitment.
This is actually important. Remember this part again.
Strategy did not eradicate
100,000.
So U.S. invasion.
Policymakers and experts began.
So Wall Street Journal is basically saying exactly what I just said, which is that the U.S. invasion created ripe ground for the Taliban to recruit more people.
Began to question the effectiveness of that large military presence.
What became clear was that the US counterinsurgency strategy did not eradicate the Taliban. In fact, some of the more controversial tactics that the US used in Afghanistan, such as night raids and arbitrary detentions and airstrikes that sometimes kill civilians.
That's like straight up JSOC, by the way. Everything that our special forces did in Afghanistan was a gift. Was an absolute fucking gift to the Taliban. Like everything.
Civilians, created discontent in local communities, and actually helped the Taliban recruit more fighters.
The Taliban's recruitment drive enabled them to increase in numbers and gain control of yet more territory, launching near-daily attacks against the US and Afghan forces. So with bin Laden dead and facing mounting pressure from Democratic lawmakers in Congress, Obama announced his plan to withdraw some 33,000 troops from the region and transfer power to the Afghan military.
Our mission will change from combat to support. By 2014, this process of transition will be complete, and the Afghan people will be responsible for their own security.
That plan didn't work as intended. The Afghan security forces were plagued by problems that continue to haunt them, such as corruption, which made them an ineffective fighting force against the Taliban, who continue to fight, allegedly armed and funded by Pakistan.
The Afghan government has acknowledged problems with effectiveness and corruption among its security forces, but told the Journal that corruption is decreasing. And Pakistan's government has denied backing the Taliban, but says it has some limited influence over the group.
Yeah, totally. Just like I'm not getting the backing of Big Jeff Bezos when I run the ad at the top of the fucking hour. Every hour when there's a 60-second ad break at the top, you know? But then tell you that you can avoid those ads by subscribing, whether for $5 or for free if you have a Twitch Prime. You can subscribe and avoid said ad breaks. You know, that is a thing you can do. Also, you can use an ad block or a VPN, but Twitch Prime is free. If you have an Amazon Prime, that is. Here's the 1-minute ad break now.
This map shows just...
Do you think Osama believed the conspiracy that Bush did 9/11? Yeah, dude.
how much territory the Taliban had taken over in 2017.
The Taliban's gradual advances across the country really began alarming people in the capital.
After NATO announced the end of its combat mission, the Taliban scored symbolic victories such as capturing the city of Kunduz. While mapping the Taliban's exact presence has been tricky in such a fluid situation, some analysts have drawn maps based on news reports and social media that outline the group's territorial control from 2017. At the time, the Afghan military was already struggling to hold the Taliban back, and Trump announced he was sending more troops.
The security threats we face in Afghanistan and the broader region are immense.
Why did Pakistan support Taliban? Dude, their fucking Taliban is like they're people. Like, I don't know how to describe it. They're Pashtun. They're like, a lot of the Taliban fighters are literally fucking from the same tribes that are Pakistani tribes as well. It was also the Wahhabist influence within Pakistan. Like, the Taliban is also active within Pakistan as well. Some Pakistanis will unironically say, like, oh, well, the support for the Taliban by the ISI was actually done because they wanted to, you know, defend their own internal security. I don't know how true that is, but yeah, there's a lot of border crossings between Pakistan and Afghanistan. And a lot of the Taliban get indoctrinated and radicalized by Wahhabi madrasas within the Pakistani borders.
President Trump's announcement fueled the will to fight among some fighters. I remember speaking to young Taliban fighters who said that they'd actually considered giving up the war once the American troops left. But once President Trump said he was going to send more troops, they said there was no way they were going to give up the fight.
Around 4 years later, on July 4th, 2021, U.S. troops finally left Bagram, their main base of operations in the country. Meanwhile, the Taliban's expansion accelerated.
We cannot continue the cycle of extending or expanding our military presence in Afghanistan.
As foreign troops pulled out, insurgents took many districts without having to fight. The group has been trying to show a friendlier face, posting propaganda videos purporting to show Taliban fighters shaking hands with Afghan soldiers or guarding borders.
This is like a bit of a Western-centric approach, by the way, to this, saying like this is Taliban propaganda, because it like wholeheartedly fails to comprehend like how people in that region, like in the indigenous population of Afghanistan, view these sorts of ethnic strifes and these sorts of never-ending conflicts. The reason why they were like, no, it is actual reality. No, like the reason why they were fucking buddies is because there are a lot of warring tribes in Afghanistan. Afghanistan is a incredibly diverse country of 40 million people that have literally fucking villagers murdering one another in perpetuity. Okay? So all they know is fucking warring with one another and then shaking hands and then getting together and collaborating once again. Do you know what you're talking about? No, like this is how. I mean, they're fucking. A lot of these dudes are tribal, man. Like it's just different. Like I don't know how else to describe it. My man just what? Why are you guys saying no mega lol? Oh, do you know what you're talking about? Oh, that's why. I'm gonna watch the George Stephanopoulos thing in a second.
hands with Afghan soldiers or guarding borders without disrupting trade. The Afghan government didn't respond to a request for comment on these images. Analysts say it's part of a campaign to legitimize the insurgency amid negotiations with the Afghan government. While the Biden administration says America's military campaign has accomplished its objectives, U.S. airstrikes against the Taliban.
It's literally the biggest copium to be like, oh, dude, no, we totally won, dude. That's what we were trying to do, and we did it. Like, no.
Are expected to continue. And America plans to keep monitoring terrorist threats. People in Afghanistan question what the Taliban's plans are and whether they can coexist with the Afghan government.
The Taliban's gains raise two main risks for Afghanistan. One, that the country might split, possibly along sectarian lines, which could throw the country into another bloody civil war. Or that a fundamentalist Islamist group takes power in Afghanistan again, which would undermine the whole purpose of the war, which was to eradicate terrorism risks from the country.
To say we won is a massive overstatement, but saying it's a complete failure? No. It's either W or an L, depending on how you look at it, depending on what you admit the American war machine's ultimate goals were.
Ben,
if you understand that the American war machine's ultimate goals were to fucking draw out this conflict over the course of like 20 fucking years as you lay down fat contracts for defense contractors while trying to set up like regional operations that self-fund by dark money opium trade and simultaneously create instability in the region, have bases of operation that you can fucking move around, you sell a lot of fucking guns and sell a lot of small arms, sell a lot of fucking weapons. If that was the goal, then yes, it's a massive W, but that is the goal. That is the real goal of American imperialism. But if the goal ultimately was to do whatever the fucking propaganda outlets were stating, like maintain regional stability, do democracy building in Afghanistan, build a robust military force for the Afghan government so that they can have autonomy, and also eradicate the Taliban for their crime of harboring Al-Qaeda and harboring Osama bin Laden, then no, none of those goals were achieved. Taliban is stronger than ever before. They have literally gotten the country a gift wrap by the United States government. So now it's their country, okay, and it's their government. They also had a puppet state installed that was not popular, and they didn't do shit. Like, they personally they didn't accomplish any of those goals. Like, there's no fucking democratic process at all. So, it didn't fucking work at all. And for people saying goal was to eliminate Al-Qaeda initially, yeah, except we literally give Al-Qaeda our weapons right now. The weapons that we have, that we sell to Saudi Arabia, makes their way into the hands of Al-Qaeda insurgents in their ongoing genocide in Yemen. You understand that, right? So, if our goal was to stop Al-Qaeda in its fucking tracks, then we didn't do that either. Obviously, they're not as powerful as they once were, but other terror cells took their place regardless. Why would we give them weapons? Because that's all we do, man. That's all we fucking do. All we do is give people weapons, and then we have to fight them. Oopsie, gotta go to war. Yeah, all you need to know about this conflict is that the U.S. knew almost immediately that Saudi Arabia funded 9/11, and we proceeded to ignore that information because it was politically inconvenient. Like, David Frum, who was a speechwriter for George W. Bush at the time, who now fucking is considered like a never Trump Republican, so he gets a lot of praise even though he should be in jail. David Frum famously wrote the Axis of Evil speech. He coined the term Axis of Evil. And in that conversation, and this was the post 9/11 speech that George W. Bush delivered, right? He mentioned the axis of evil, which featured Iran. And at the time, Iranians were like, what the fuck? What do you mean? What? Like, it featured Iraq for no reason. It featured Iran. It did not feature Saudi Arabia. And it literally featured Iran, which was already a natural enemy to Al-Qaeda in the region and continued to fight Al-Qaeda in the region. And actually, ISIS as well. To be fair, at the time, Iraq was under Saddam's rule. So what? So the fuck what? You are demonstrating how simplified and how incorrect your point of view is if you think Iran and Iraq should be featured in the same fucking conversation as allies, dude. That's it. That's literally, that's like, you've already shown that you have no fucking idea what's going on when you talk about Iran and also Iraq on the same team. Chatters don't know the difference between Shia and Sunni Islam. No. You realize that Saudi is in war with Yemen, right? I do. It's called a genocide. And I do realize it. Our weapons blow up fucking school buses and shit there regularly, and there's no coverage on it.